Animal Production, Lesson Number 3, Interpret Plans and Drawings. At the end of this lesson, you are expected to do the following. Draw layout plan of different types of housing. Enumerate the building codes in constructing poultry and livestock houses. Poultry housing system. Generally, 4 systems of poultry housing are followed among the poultry keepers. The type of housing adopted depends on a large extent on the amount of ground and the capital available. Types of poultry housing, we have a free-range or extensive system, semi-intensive system, folding unit system, intensive system, which is divided into 2, battery system and deep litter system. Free-range system. It is the oldest one and has been used for centuries by general farmers where there is no shortage of land. This system allows great, but not unlimited, space to the birds on land where they can find an appreciable amount of food in the form of herbage, seeds, and insects. Birds are protected from predatory animals and infectious diseases including parasitic infestation. At present, due to advantages of intensive methods of the system, is almost obsolete. Semi-intensive system. Where the amount of free space available is limited, this system is adopted, but it is necessary to allow the birds 20 to 30 square yards per bird of outside run. Whenever possible, this space should be divided, giving a run on either side of the house of 10 to 15 square yards per bird, thus enabling the birds to move onto fresh ground. Folding unit system. This system of housing is an innovation of recent years, in portable folding unit birds being confined to one small run. The position is changed each day, giving them fresh ground, and the birds find a considerable proportion of food from the herbage are heartier and harder. For the farmer, the beneficial effect of scratching and manuring on the land is another side effect. The most convenient folding unit to handle is that which is made for 25 hens. A floor space of 1 square foot should be allowed for each bird in the house and 3 square feet in the run, so that the total floor space for the whole unit is 4 square feet per bird as with the intensive system. A suitable measurement for a folding house to take 25 birds is 5 feet wide and 20 feet long, the house being 5 by 5, 1/3 of the run. The part nearest the house is covered in and the remaining of 10 inches open with wire netting sides and top. Disadvantage of folding unit system are the food and water must be carried back and forth out to the birds and eggs. 2. There is some extra labor involved in the regular moving of the fold units. Intensive system. This system is usually adapted where land is limited and expensive. In this system, the birds are confined to the house entirely with no access to land outside. This has only been made possible by admitting the direct rays of the sun on the floor of the house so that part of the windows are removable, or either fold or slide down to permit the ultraviolet rays to reach the birds. Under the intensive systems are battery, or what we call the cage system, and the deep litter methods are most common. Battery system. This is the most intensive type of poultry production and is used or useful to those with only a small quantity of floor space at their disposal. In the battery system, each hen is confined to a cage just large enough to permit very limited movement and allow her to stand and sit comfortably. The usual floor space is 14 by 16 inches and the height 17 inches. The floor is of standard strong galvanized wire set at slope from back to the front so that the eggs are laid rolled out of the cage through a receiving gutter. Underneath is a tray for droppings. Both food and water receptacles are outside the cage. Many small cages can be assembled together. If necessary, it may be multi-stored. The whole structure should be of metal so that no parasites will be harbored and thorough disinfections can be carried out as often as required, provided the batteries of the cages are set up in a place where is well ventilated and lighted, is not too hot and is vermin-proof, and that the food meets all nutritional needs. This system has proven to be advantageous. The advantages of battery system. remarkably successful in the tropical countries. 2. It requires a minimum expenditures of energy from the birds as they spend all time in the shade. 3. It lessens the load of excess body heat. 4. The performance of each bird can be noted and calling easily carried out. Deep litter system. In this system, the poultry birds are kept in large pens up to 250 birds each on floor covered with litters like straw, sawdust, or leaves up to depth of 8 to 12 inches. Deep litter resembles to dry compost. In other words, we can define deep litter as the accumulation of the material used for litter with poultry manure until it reaches a depth of 8 to 12 inches. The buildup has to be carried out correctly to give desired result, which takes very little attention. Suitable dry organic materials like straw, which needs to be cut into 2 to 3 inches or inch lengths, sawdust, leaves, dry grasses, ground nut shells, broken up maize stalks and cobs, bark of trees in sufficient quantity to give a depth of about 6 inches in the pen should be used. The droopings of the birds gradually combined with the materials used to build up the litter. In about 2 months, it has usually become deep litter, and by 6 months, it has become built up deep litter. At about 12 months of old stage, it is fully built up. Extra litter materials can be added to maintain sufficient depth. The deep litter pen should be started when the weather is dry, and is likely to remain so for about 2 months for the operation of the bacterial action, which alters the composition of the litters. You start new litter with each year's pullets and continue with it for their laying period. The advantage of deep litter system. Number 1, birds and eggs are safely enclosed in deep litter intensive pen, which is a strong wire netting or expanded metal. 2, build up deep litter also supplies some of the food requirements of the birds. They obtain animal protein factor from deep litter. 3, the level of coccidiosis and worm infestation is much lower with poultry kept on good deep litter than with birds in bare yards. Well-managed deep litter kept in dry condition with no wet spots around water has a sterilizing action. 4. With correct conditions observed with well-managed litter, there is no need to clean a pen out for a whole year. The only attention is the regular steering and adding of some materials as needed. 5. Generally, 35 laying birds can produce in 1 year about 1 ton of deep litter fertilizer. The level of nitrogen in fresh manure is about 1%, but on well-built up deep litter, it may be around 3% nitrogen, which is nearly 20% protein. It also contains about 2% phosphorus and 2% potash. Its value is about 3 times that of cattle manure. 6. It is valuable insulating agent. The litter maintains its own constant temperature, so birds burrow into it when the air temperature is high and thereby cool themselves. Conversely, they can warm themselves in the same way when the weather is very cool. Basic rules for deep litter system. First, do not have too many birds in the pen. 1 bird for every 3½ to 4 and preferably 5 square feet of floor space. Second, provide sufficient ventilation to enable the litter to keep in correct condition. Third, keep the litter dry. This is probably the masterwork in a deep litter system. If the litter gets soaked by leaking from roofs or from water vessels, it upsets the whole process and would have to start over again. Or, all probable precautions should be taken to maintain the litters completely dry. Fourth, steer the litter regularly. Turning the litter just like digging in a garden, at least once a week, is very important in maintaining a correct buildup of deep litter. Poultry houses may be classified according to 1. The number of rooms or pens they contain. Example, continuous and colony houses. 2. Their portability or permanence. Example, portable colony houses and permanent colony houses. 3. The style of roof. And lastly, it has been observed that a greater number of layers thrive well and produce more in the open type of laying house. The layer eats less and lay more eggs than those layers housed in a closed type. Orientation and construction of a poultry house. The orientation and construction of a poultry house should be in conformity with the system of managing birds. They may be adapted by the poultry raiser to minimize housing cost. When building a poultry house, make sure that the cage does not face towards the prevailing winds and heavy rains. although the house should allow free circulation of air. It should not be so open that rain will blow in and wet the interior of the poultry house. The house should be built in a way that is penetrated by sunshine, which will keep the poultry house dry. A good poultry house can be made out of bamboo as sidings, pieces of wood for posts, and rafters with either nipa or kogon for roofings. These materials provide convenience and comfort to the birds, and expenses for housing can be minimized. We have types of roofs for poultry houses, which is determined by the following factors. Number 1, availability of materials. 2, amount of investment. And 3, size of operations. Types of roofs used in poultry houses. Shed or single span type. This type of roof is used in small construction, which makes use of the simplest materials. Cable or double span. This type of roof is the most common type of roof system. Combination of cable and shed. Monitor type. This type of roof is ideal for big establishment, especially in commercial farms. It is actually double span with an outlet of air at the top of the roof. Semi-monitor type. This type of roof is similar to the monitor type, except that the outlet of air is made on one side only. Housing system for livestock or piggery. Pig houses must be designed and constructed properly for good health and well-being of the pigs to obtain maximum performance and savings in labor cost. Bear in mind that a good building may not improve the health condition of the pigs, but a poor one will certainly increase the risk of incurring diseases. If the environment is uncomfortable, the pig is subjected to stress, making them prone to infection. Factors to consider in constructing a pig farm. First, site selection. The first step in putting up or expanding a piggery project is the selection of the site. It is important to consider the following during selection. Number 1, availability and accessibility of essential services such as feed suppliers or stores, water and electricity sources. Number 2, the surroundings should be suitable for construction of drainage and manure disposal, thus there should be ample distance from neighbors and other farms. The site should comply with local policies like zoning and environmental conditions. Number 3, the possibility of expansion should also be considered. Next factors, zoning and permits. Check out local zoning laws and regulation for a proposed location. If it is zoned on another man's agricultural property, study the situation carefully before building the pig pen or pig house. Secure all required permits, such as building, environmental, and other permits required by the government before constructing. Letter C, accessibility. Check the availability and cost of feeds, water, and electricity. Water source should be able to supply for the pig demands and for future expansion. Keep in mind that water demands in twice the weight of the feed consumed plus wastage, which is 50%, and the water for cleaning, which is 30%. If high electricity demands are anticipated, a standby generator can also be considered. A farm-to-market road should also be accessible to facilitate the transport of feeds and pigs throughout the year. D. Distance from other farms. Ideal distance from other farm and neighbors is about 1 kilometer. This will serve as a natural screen in the prevention of disease. Distance from the neighbors will prevent complaints regarding pig odors, flies, noise, and pollution. Factors to consider in planning farm buildings. A. Environmental control. B. Future expansion. C. Proper ventilation. D. Minimum labor requirement. E. Durability of building materials. F. Dryness. G. Sanitation. H. Rodent and bird control. I. Safety. Building orientation and ventilation. The front side of the building should be facing east and the rear side should be facing west. This would prevent the animals from too much exposure to the sunlight. This orientation would ensure equal distribution of sunlight throughout the day. Areas regularly visited by outsiders and should be situated near the gate. These areas are offices, feed bodega or storage, market area, and finisher's pen. The farm road should be near the pig houses with alleys connecting them. The health condition of the pigs can be affected by the specific swine house climate. Any disturbance in this climate can cause respiratory and intestinal diseases. The pigs in the Philippines are not expected to perform as efficient as the pigs in the temperate region, since the prevailing environmental temperature in the country is 24 to 35 degrees Celsius. The comfort zone of the pigs in the temperate region is between 18.5 to 20 degrees Celsius. Thus, it is very important to make the animals comfortable by designing a pig house with high roofing and proper ventilation. Ventilation serves the following purposes. 1. Replacement of foul air with fresh air or removal of odors. 2. Removal of moisture. 3. Removal of excess heat. Pig houses should be well ventilated, however, avoid direct drafts and coldness. To achieve proper ventilation, consider the following factors. 1. Inlets to serve as passageway of fresh air into the pig house. 2. Insulation should be available to keep house warm when necessary. 3. Supplemental heat during cold weather. 4. Presence of vapors barriers. 5. Removal of moist air through the outlets. Different designs of ventilation system. A. Natural ventilation, which is mainly a ventilation system which depends on wind effect and convection effect. Ventilation in wind effect is created by the wind blown against one side of the building, creating suction pressure. In the convection effect, ventilation is caused by a still or slowly moving air. One example of natural ventilation is the monitor type building. B. Automatically controlled natural ventilation system. This is a system where curtains or flaps are constructed on the sides of the building, and adjusted when the temperature inside the pen is high or low. Curtains can be used to prevent drafts and as a protection for the rapid change of temperature in the evening during inclement weather. C. Fan ventilation system. This uses a fan to maintain the normal temperature inside the pen. Ventilating or oscillating fans blowers are the most commonly used equipment for putting air where it is needed. One problem with this system is that it entails additional cost for running the fan. Normal air movement inside the house is very important, thus pig houses should not be constructed too close to each other. A distance of 10 to 15 meters between houses should be maintained for proper ventilation. However, this practice is too expensive. To make full use of the land, trees should be planted between buildings, or buildings can be constructed near the rice fields, vegetable gardens, biogas lagoon, or fish ponds. This setup is suitable for ecological balance to keep the surroundings cooler. As much as possible, the walls should have holes or GI pipes or steel bars or railings to ensure airflow. Although high perimeter walls are needed for security reasons, it is wiser to use barbed wire or post with barbed wire. Construction of very wide houses does not prevent ventilation problems. On the other hand, wide houses are not very efficient in heat exchange. Since accumulation of body heat by the pigs increases the temperature inside the house. To be efficient, the width of the house should not more than 10 meters. Building pig houses. In constructing pig houses, give close attention on the different parts of the building and the materials to be used. Building pig houses involve cost, however, don't sacrifice the quality of the materials or its lifespan should be a major consideration. A. Floor construction. There is a direct and avoidable contact between the pig and the flooring. Thus, the texture and the slope of the floor are two main considerations during construction. B. Ground pen. In ground pen, the flooring should be set firmly on the earth free from organic matters or on well-trampled gravel or crushed rock fields. The floor should not be too rough to avoid foot and leg problem. On the other hand, a very smooth floor becomes slippery, which can also cause a leg problem. It is recommended that the flooring should be finished with the use of a wooden trowel. The slope should be 2 to 3%, which means a 2 to 3 centimeter depth per meter length towards the canal. C. Slatted flooring. The slatted flooring allows the pig manure to drop or to be forced through the slats. This lessens direct contact of the pig with the waste possible carrying pathogenic organisms and or parasites. Recommended slat spacing for fatteners is 2 centimeters. Before constructing a hog house, careful consideration must be given to sanitation, ventilation, and temperature. The kind of diseases occurring in certain piggeries is sometimes the consequence of a poor building layout. Poorly designed and constructed building increases the incidence of diseases and parasites among swine. The first step in constructing a hog house is to determine the number and the type of pig to raise. Pen size depends on the number and type of pigs that will be housed. Decide also what system of rearing to adopt, whether individual or group. Suppose you want to raise 6 pigs which will be kept under they reach the marketable weight of 90 kilograms. In computing the size of the pen, use the pen size of pigs from 60 to 90 kilograms. Please refer to the table of the space requirement of building and equipment for swine. Multiply the figure from the table by the number of pigs to be raised to get the total floor area of the pen, and then next decide the form of the pen. A pen can either be rectangular or square, but make sure that the required size is strictly followed. Building and Construction Code. Building codes are a set of rules that must be followed to satisfy the minimum acceptable levels of safety for buildings and non-building structures. The objective of building codes is to ensure the health, safety, and protection of the public when it comes to the construction and occupancy of buildings. Building codes are determined by appropriate authorities in different areas and may vary widely from country to country. Building codes stipulate details of the construction and maintenance of a building or construction. This includes the following. 1. Fire safety rules. Safety exits in buildings, limitations regarding how far a fire should spread, and the provision of adequate firefighting equipment. 2. Structural rules. Buildings need to be strong enough to resist internal and external forces without collapsing. 3. Health stipulations. Buildings should have health stipulations such as adequate air circulation, washrooms, and plumbing facilities. 4. Others. Building codes can make sure that the proper noise limitations are set in place to protect occupants from noise pollution through walls and windows. There may be also special provisions to ensure that disabled people have proper access to and throughout the property. Anyone who builds this construction and fails to adhere to the proper building codes is liable to very severe penalties. For the complete ruling in building and construction codes in the Philippines, you can visit the site www.philippinen.org. Signs, signals, and barricades used in building construction. Signs, signals, and barricades are important, if not critical, to the safety of the construction workers. Accident prevention signs and tags. General, signs and symbol required shall be visible at all times when work is being performed and shall be removed or covered properly when the hazard does not exist anymore. Danger signs. Danger signs shall be used only where an immediate hazard exists. Danger signs should be read as the predominating color for the upper panel, outline on the borders, and a white lower panel for additional sign wording. Caution signs. Caution signs should be used only to warn against or caution against practices. Caution sign shall have yellow as the predominating color, black upper panel and borders, yellow lettering of caution on the black panel, and the lower yellow panel for the additional sign wording. Black lettering shall be used for additional wording. Standard color of the background should be yellow, and the panel black with yellow letters. Any letter used against yellow background shall be black. The color shall be those of opaque, glossy samples. Exit signs. Exit signs, when required, shall be lettered in legible red letters, not less than 6 inches high, on a white field, and the principal stroke of the letter should be at least 3/4 in width. Safety instructions signs. Safety instruction signs, when used, shall be with green upper panel with white letters to convey the principal message. Any additional wording on the sign shall be black letters on the white background. Directional signs. Directional signs other than automotive traffic signs specified in the paragraph shall be white with a black panel and white directional symbol. Any wording on the sign shall be black letters on the white background. Traffic signs. Construction areas shall be posted with legible traffic signs at point hazard. All traffic control signs or devices used for protection of construction workers should conform to Occupational Safety and Health Administration standards. Accident prevention tags. Accident prevention tags shall be used as temporary means of warning of an existing hazard, such as defective tools, equipments, etc. They shall not be used in place of or as a substitute for accident prevention signs. A specification for accident prevention tags similar as shown below shall apply. Signaling flagmen. When operationing, such signs, symbols, and barricades do not provide the necessary protection on or adjacent to highway or street, flagmen or other appropriate traffic control shall be provided. Hand signaling by flagmen shall use red flags, at least 18 inches square, or sign paddles, and in periods of darkness, red lights. Flagmen shall be provided with and shall wear a red or orange garment while flagging. Warning garments worn at night shall be at reflectorized materials. Barricades. Barricades for protection of employees should conform to the OSHA standards. Codes in constructing poultry and livestock houses. Codes are very useful documents for informing the general community about the grid standard. In particular, we are referring to codes relating and constructing farm animals houses. These codes are included in the so-called animal welfare codes. It covers the main areas that must be considered to achieve a desired standard of animal welfare. For codes about a particular type of livestock, these areas will include feed and water, health management practices, breeding, emergency, slaughter, and as mentioned, housing. Cage and pen dimensions for the housing of animals. Cage areas and heights are the internal cage dimensions and not the oversize of the cages. They include all floor areas available for use by the animals. Areas means the product of the cage length and the cage width measured internally and horizontally, not the product of the floor length and floor width, which may be sloping. The cage floor are for animals house in group must be not less than that specified for an animal house singly. Where large mature animals are to be housed, the minimum cage floor areas required may be larger than those specified. For the purpose of calculating the minimum floor area, the shelf area may be included where there is adequate height for the animal above the shelf. Below is the table showing the ideal measurements of houses of farm animals.